Hey there, welcome to Creeperian and Happy New Year's. I hope you had a great time with all your loved ones. But now, it is time to get spooked in 2026. Here are 3 creepy stories occurred in the forest. Enjoy. I've been a ranger for 15 years. The forest is beautiful in the same way a knife can be beautiful. Sharp, quiet, and dangerous if you forget what you're dealing with. I've seen my share of strange things out here. Once, I followed child-sized footprints in the snow that circled my tower 3 times, then vanished in the middle of an open clearing. Another night, I watched a line of deer walk silently in single file toward the tree line. Stop at the same spot, then all look up at the sky at the exact same moment. The worst was a radio call from a lost hiker whispering that something was standing right behind him. When we found the radio, it was hanging from a branch 10 feet up. No hiker, no tracks. But none of that comes close to what happened in January of 2014. My post is Watchtower 12B. I check trails. Monitor wildlife patterns. Report weather changes. Keep idiots from falling off cliffs, starting fires, or getting themselves killed. Paperwork too, lots of it. My only real company is Michael, who covers Area 13B, same job as me, with the extra duty of maintaining an old cable car up in the mountains. We talk on the radio all the time. Sometimes meet up if something is happening on the borders of our zones. He's the kind of guy who jokes he's the better ranger, then winks like he expects applause. That day started normal. A couple of drunks tried to light a bonfire in a no-fire zone. I escorted them out, wrote the report, cursed under my breath about paperwork. Then things shifted. First, the animals. Moose stood completely still for minutes at a time, eyes blank, like they forgot how to exist. Birds changed direction mid-flight, circling with no purpose. Squirrels fought each other viciously over nothing, leaving tufts of fur and blood on the bark. I couldn't explain it. I've studied behavior patterns long enough to know when something is wrong. Then the weather joined in. Sun overhead. No snow. Yet the air bit like winter knives. A thick fog settled in, hugging the trees, swallowing sound. I grabbed the radio, 12B to 13B. You seeing this weirdness? Static, then Michael's voice. Casual, joking. Define weirdness. My face, my charm? I rolled my eyes. Animals, fog, cold without snow. Whole forest feels. Off, he went quiet. Too quiet. Yeah, he said. Something's wrong up here too. A pause. Hold on, what the... His voice dropped. What the hell? There's a naked guy covered in red, paint, blood. He's running on all 4s, screaming, I didn't do it. I'm going to prep the tranquilizers. Call you back. The radio clicked dead. I stared through the fog. Heart beating too loud. Before I could process it, the motion sensor light flicked on at the base of my tower. A man stood there. Big beard. Wearing an actual deer hide over his shoulders like some ancient hunter. I've met strange people out here. Off-grid hermits, conspiracy hikers, amateur shamans who think crystals cure broken legs. But this man felt different, wrong. He tilted his head and shouted my name. My real name. Come down, he said. Time to pay for your sins. My stomach tightened. I didn't move. He pulled out a machete and started hacking at the tower supports. The beams are thick. It would take hours to do any real damage. But the message was clear. He wanted to rattle me. I grabbed my hunting rifle. Not to kill him, just to scare him. I stepped down a few stairs, leveled the barrel, raised my voice with my best command tone. Drop the weapon. Step away from the structure. Last warning. He laughed. A dry, broken sound. You won't shoot. Rangers don't kill people. You're not a soldier. Then he put the machete between his teeth. Started climbing. I warned him again. My hands shook. I fired a warning shot into the dirt. He didn't even flinch. He kept climbing, eyes locked onto mine, like this whole thing was already decided. I tried to aim for the machete. Moving target. Bad angle. The shot hit his hand instead. He screamed. The blade dropped. I barely had time to breathe before he lunged at me. His weight slammed into my chest. Fingers closed around my throat. I kicked, shoved, tried to push him off. He grabbed the rifle in the struggle. It discharged. The sound cracked inside my skull. He slid back down the stairs, one slow bump at a time, until his body stopped on the second platform. Silence. My hands were covered in his blood. Except it wasn't red. It was black. Thick and oily. My radio crackled. I stumbled back up the steps and grabbed it. "Michael?" I said, voice shaking. A voice answered, but it wasn't his. Low, flat, like someone speaking through a mouth full of dirt. "What you did cannot be forgiven. You deserve to die." Then the line cut. I stood there listening to static, thinking about Michael, the naked man, the fog, the animals. I called our supervisor. He sounded exhausted. Said several rangers hadn't reported in. He kept getting strange messages, threats, muttered prayers. SOD emergency teams were hours away thanks to distance and weather. I told him what happened with the man. Emphasized self-defense. He told me to breathe. SOD he understood. Then told me to check on Michael. I loaded more ammunition. Grabbed my flashlight. Survival knife. Night closing fast. No time to think. I followed the river. Quicker path to 13B. The ground was marked with streaks of red, just like Michael described. I also saw strange objects hanging from branches. Bones wrapped in string, feathers tied to sticks. Something like voodoo charms. 5 minutes later, I reached something I wish I hadn't. Skulls in tree hollows. Candles burning inside them, flesh still clinging to the bone. Names painted beneath each one in red. I kept walking because if I stopped, I wasn't sure I'd ever move again. Eventually, the trail ended at a camp. Rough cabins. Frames made of logs. Bones wired together across the entrances. Same sick red paint smeared everywhere. None of this existed yesterday. I never heard construction. No voices. No engines. Nothing. I asked myself if I was asleep, dead, in some place layered on top of the forest I knew. Then I heard humming from the largest cabin. I crouched behind a stump. 15 people moved inside. Naked bodies streaked with red. Bones strapped over shoulders like armor. They carried corpses to a roaring fire and tossed them in like offerings. I recorded it. No one would believe me otherwise. Flash off. Sound off. Brightness low. Short clip. Enough to prove it later. I pocketed the phone and slipped away. "Wait," someone said. "I smell meat." My heart froze. He sniffed the air, turning slowly. I eased sideways. Soft steps. No sudden movements. Then he started saying names. Names I recognized, rangers, people I worked with, people I ate lunch with. My mind whispered, "This can't be real." My radio chirped, loud, sharp. The man snapped toward me and screamed for the others. I bolted. Branches whipped my face. Boots hammered roots and rocks. Behind me, voices howled my name. Promises to peel me open. Laughter. Prayers to something I didn't recognize. I reached the cave I'd been aiming for. Wide entrance. Hidden slick deeper inside. I squeezed in. Held my breath while they searched. Their voices drifted past. "He's here. We'll find him. He bleeds for us." Eventually the sounds faded. My phone buzzed. Message from my supervisor. Helicopter inbound to Michael's tower in 20 minutes. I waited until it felt safe, then ran. When I arrived, I almost collapsed. 3 of those people stood around a wooden board. Michael lay tied to it. No skin, no life. My chest emptied. Something broke in me. I fired into the air. They turned at the same time and shouted my name like it was part of a ritual. Rage took over. I shot them. Again. They stopped moving. The helicopter appeared through the fog. My supervisor stepped out, confused, staring at the scene. "You all right?" he asked. His voice was soft. "Careful." I tried to answer. Words stuck. He frowned. Looked past me. "Why did you shoot those deer?" My brain stalled. "Deer." I looked back. 3 bodies. Not people. Not bones, dear. Perfectly normal. I felt my mouth go dry. We flew back to HQ in silence. He told me to rest. I went to my room, sat on the bed, stared at my hands. Was any of it real? Was I losing my mind? Then I remembered the video. Proof. I opened the gallery. Hit play. Darkness, trees, wind, no cabins, no fire. No bodies, nothing. I swallowed and called Michael out of pure instinct. He picked up, sounded tired. "Hey man." I couldn't speak for a second. "You're alive." "Pretty sure," he said with a weak laugh. "Boss said you had a rough day. Get some sleep." He hung up before I could ask anything else. I sat there, listening to the quiet hum of the building, thinking about black blood, voices on the radio, skulls with candles, deer that weren't deer, or maybe deer that always were. I still don't know what happened in that forest. I only know that sometimes, late at night, I hear the radio crackle to life. A voice I don't recognize whispers, "You deserve to die." And for a second, I believe it. When I was 15, school felt like this weird mix of boredom, crushes, homework disasters. Plus my 2 best friends, Lily and Marissa, who somehow made everything feel lighter. Lily was the smart one who always got called on in class while pretending she hated the attention. Marissa barely passed math but owned the social scene like it was her birthright. So when our whole school went to camp, I figured it would just be another awkward trip where teachers pretended we were bonding while they tried not to lose anyone. The boys stayed in the next cabin over. We had a volleyball game in the afternoon. Our team crushed them. One guy named Eric stared at us with that tight smile people get when they're trying to pretend they're not mad. "You guys just got lucky." Lily laughed. "Scoreboard doesn't lie," he muttered something like. "Wait till next round." Later there were hiking drills, trust exercises. The kind where you fall backwards and hope someone catches you. Then as the sun dropped, we went swimming in the lake. The water felt cold, but calm. Lily flirted with some boy from science class. Marissa whispered that maybe he liked her back, so we teased her. Nothing cruel, just that giggly teenage hype. Out of nowhere, Lily froze and pointed across the lake. She said there was something floating near the far reeds. I squinted, nothing at first. Then I saw this pale hint of a shape. Long, almost human, but stretched. The surface barely rippled. We told her it was probably a branch or trash. She didn't push it, just stayed quiet. At night the counselors let us sit around to tell scary stories. One girl talked about a figure that crawls under beds. Another said, "My cousin swears someone stood at his window every night." Then it became our turn. Marissa smirked. Okay, picture this. A girl goes missing at a lake like this. People still hear her calling. Someone gasped, laughed. After that, Lily spoke quieter. What if something lives in the water and waits? A guy scoffed. You're just freaking us out because you lost the game earlier, Eric added. If something was there, I'd have seen it. We rolled our eyes. Later we went to bed. The cabin got quiet. I couldn't sleep. My brain just kept replaying that weird stretch of pale over the water. Then I heard tapping on the door, soft, patient. My stomach tightened. I opened it. Nobody there. I lay back. Down. The tapping came again, but sharper. Then footsteps sprinting outside. I jumped up, swung the door open fast. Still nothing. I stepped out to check. The night smelled like damp wood. I followed the faint sound along the side of the cabin. That's when something leaned into view from behind the corner. It looked like a girl, but too thin. Hair hanging straight and wet across her face. Skin almost colorless. Eyes wide, no blink. Lips parted as if she wanted to say my name but forgot how. My chest went cold. I ran inside and shook Lily and Marissa, awake, telling them someone was out there. They whispered I was freaking myself out. Then decided maybe it had been Eric trying to get back at us for beating them. So we went together to the boys' cabin. I knocked. Eric opened with messy hair. If I wanted revenge, I'd have made it obvious, he said, half laughing. Wasn't me. We stared, unsure what to say, walked back in silence. Sleep barely came. Later in the dark, Lily whispered, "Describe her." I did. She stared at me. That's what I saw in the lake. Marissa tried to be rational. Could be a trick of the light, or our brains messing with us. I wanted to believe it. But something lingered. We sat whispering theories. Lily said, "What if she drowned here?" Marissa countered, "Or maybe some camper sneaked around." Part of me wanted to believe it was some long prank pulled off perfectly. The other part still remembers that cold moment outside. How it felt too real to be a joke. To this day I'm not sure what we saw. Maybe Eric was lying. Maybe it was something else entirely. Something that didn't belong to the camp or to any story we told that night. I grew up thinking the woods were a second home. Sometimes the first one. That quiet stretch of hills and shadowed trees out in Appalachia taught me how to walk without being heard. How to watch where the wind carried my scent. How to sit still until my legs felt numb, just because my dad said, "Give it time." The woods always talk if you shut up long enough. Dad's name is Carl, but nobody calls him that. Everyone back home calls him Old Man Rivers, even though our last name isn't Rivers. He got the nickname because he knows every creek, bend, and muddy bank miles around. He says the river listens. He says the trees remember. Then he laughs like he didn't mean it. But I always wondered if he did. We hunted together since I could hold a rifle without dropping it. At first he'd put his big hands over mine, steadying the barrel, letting me feel the kick while his grip kept me safe. Over time, he stepped back more, trusted me more, sighed. Hunting isn't about shooting. It's about respect. You don't take something unless you're ready to carry it, clean it, thank it. As weird as that sounded when I was younger, I carried it with me. Some fathers bond over baseball or old trucks. We bonded over tracking prints in wet soil. Over mornings before sunrise when frost bit our cheeks. Over long drives home with a deer tied down in the bed of the truck. The radio low, both of us quiet because we didn't need to say anything. We had stories. The time a black bear tried to steal our cooler. Dad scared it off by screaming louder than I thought human lungs could manage. The afternoon we followed an elk for miles, losing it, finding it again, losing it again, finally giving up, only to see it standing in the middle of the road on our way home like it was mocking us. Our biggest hunt happened when I was 15. We tracked a massive buck, old, scarred, antlers shaped like crook hands trying to grab the sky. Took almost 3 days before we even saw him again. When we finally did, Dad let me take the shot. My hands shook so much I almost missed. When it dropped, I couldn't breathe. Dad just clapped my shoulder. Quiet, proud. Later, we hung the antlers in the garage. He said, "Not because we're showing off, because we remember." All that to say, the woods were never something to fear. They were familiar, predictable. Yeah, sometimes they were dangerous, but only if you got stupid. That's what I believed. Until that day. We left early like always. Thermoses full of coffee for him, cocoa for me. Sandwiches wrapped in foil. Frost covering the grass like crushed glass. Breath coming out in slow clouds. There was this stillness over everything, the kind that makes every sound sharper. A branch cracking. A bird taking off. Our boots grinding over frozen leaves. We hiked for maybe an hour before the sun touched the tops of the trees. Golden light spilled through the branches. It looked peaceful. Felt safe. Dad said we'd check the ridge, then move down toward the creek. Routine, comfortable. By noon, we already had good meat. Couple of rabbits. A small deer. Enough that we both felt satisfied. We joked about heading back. Cooking something big. Maybe inviting Uncle Rick over even though nobody really likes Uncle Rick. It felt like every other hunt we'd ever done. Then Dad noticed the first print. He crouched down, motioned me over without speaking. His face tightened a little. Not fear, curiosity. He brushed leaves aside. Showed me the shape pressed into the mud. It didn't look like anything I recognized. Not bear, not cat, not deer. Longer, narrow, toes that dug deep as if whatever made them carried heavy weight forward. The edges were sharp, but stretched. Could be a sick bear, Dad muttered. Injury'll mess up a track. I nodded, but something in my chest tightened anyway. The air went colder, even though the sun still shone on our backs. We followed the prints because that's what we do. Tracks are invitations, clues. They tell stories if you read them right. The trail twisted deeper into the woods. The silence got thicker, not dead silent. Just uneasy. Like the birds didn't trust the place. Soon we found blood. At first, just drops. Dark, dried around the edges. Then more. Then smears like something had been dragged. Dad stopped. Looked at me. Stay sharp. We walked slower. Careful with every step. I started noticing things I didn't usually notice. My heartbeat. My breathing. The way the wind kept shifting directions like it couldn't decide where to go. I tried to swallow, and my throat felt dry. We found the first carcass 20 minutes later. Half a deer. Like something had split it open. Not clean, torn. Bones cracked, ribs snapped outward. Meat missing in long strips. Flies buzzed even though it was cold. I covered my nose. What the hell did that? Dad shook his head. Cats don't eat like that. Coyotes will tear, but this is different. We kept going. Against my better judgment, curiosity is stronger than fear when you've grown up believing the woods always made sense. We found more. Pieces scattered across brush. A raccoon missing everything but its head. A fox with its stomach hollowed out. Jawbones, vertebrae, clumps of fur. Trails of dried blood leading deeper toward the ridge. Each sight hit harder. My brain tried to explain it. Tried to organize it. Maybe several predators. Maybe they fought, but it didn't line up. Predators eat. They disappear. They don't pile up remains like trophies. I remember whispering, "Dad, what could do all this?" He didn't answer right away. He touched the edge of a bone, studied the marks left behind. His mouth pressed flat. Could be diseased bear. Could be poachers. Some folks do sick things. Or maybe wolves moved in. Wolves don't do this. He shrugged. Maybe not. But something's hungry. We kept following the trail until the trees pressed tighter together. Light struggled to get through. It felt like walking into a throat. The prints grew deeper, closer together. Whatever we tracked had moved fast. Heavy, determined. Then we smelled it. Rotting, wet meat coming from a cave just ahead. A crack in the hillside, wide enough to walk through if you ducked. The ground around it was churned up. Mud mixed with fur. Bones scattered near the entrance like someone dumped out a box. Dad squinted at the dark inside. We check it, slowly. My stomach twisted. Every part of me wanted to say no. To leave. To pretend we never saw anything. But I nodded. Because that's what I always did. Trust Dad. Follow Dad. The temperature dropped like stepping into a freezer. Light faded fast. Our breath echoed off the stone. We moved deeper, boots crunching over debris. When my eyes adjusted, I saw them carcasses. Not whole anymore. Deer legs, rib cages, skulls. Some chewed clean. Others still covered in strips of flesh. Everything piled along the sides like messy shelves in some nightmare pantry. Suddenly, we heard a wet tearing sound. Like someone ripping fabric, but thicker. Followed by a crunch. Something gnawing. Something swallowing. Dad lifted his rifle. Leaned close. "Stay behind me." Then Dad whispered, "If it's what's doing the killing, think about how much folks would pay for a pelt. Skull like that'd sell high." I stared at him. "You're serious?" He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We don't walk away from history, son." I didn't say anything. My chest tightened. The idea of shooting whatever was ahead didn't feel like victory. It felt like messing with something we shouldn't touch. Then, something shifted behind us. A scrape of claws against stone, slow, deliberate, like it wanted us to know it was there. What stood in the mouth of the cave didn't look like any animal I'd ever seen. No fur, no thick hide. Its skin hung in strings in places, peeled back to show raw muscle that pulsed under the light. Bones jutted out at weird angles, parts of ribs visible through torn flesh. Its face had no lips. Teeth stuck out naked, yellow and long. Eyes too dark and deep. Like holes rather than eyes. It moved like a thing that used to know how to be an animal but forgot halfway. Then it screamed. Not like a bear. Not like a cat. It sounded human for a split second. A broken wail. Then it pitched higher. Nails dragged on glass. A shriek that crawled into my skull and rattled everything inside. I tasted metal on my tongue. My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped my rifle. I heard myself mutter, "What the hell? What the hell?" Dad didn't hesitate and fired. The shot blasted through the cave. The recoil slammed into his shoulder. The beast jerked back, stumbled. Something hit the stone behind it. Then it snarled, deeper this time, more animal than anything. "Move!" Dad yelled. The creature lunged. Its claws scraped sparks off the rock. It slammed forward, hitting the floor. Dad fired again. The smell of gunpowder mixed with rot until I thought I was going to throw up. "Jeremy, go!" He shouted, "Run!" I turned and bolted. My boots slipped over loose bones. My heart pounded so loud I barely heard anything else. Behind me, shots cracked. The creature roared, pain mixing with rage. Dad cursed it under his breath, reloaded, fired again. I stumbled out of the cave into bright daylight. The contrast hurt my eyes. I kept moving. Branches slapped my face. My lungs burned. Every few steps I looked back. Dad burst from the cave seconds later. Sweat on his forehead. Breath ragged. He waved me forward. "Keep moving. Don't stop. Count your steps. Watch the ground." We ran downhill, fast. Too fast. The forest blurred. My legs felt like they might snap. I heard the creature behind us, crashing through brush, snapping branches, a sound like bones scraping bones. Dad shouted, "Stay left." I veered, barely avoided a fallen log. Then my foot caught vines. I went down hard. My knee slammed the dirt. Pain shot up my leg. "Get up!" He yelled. I tried. The vines wrapped around my ankle. Panic exploded in my chest. "I'm stuck." He fired behind me without looking. The blast echoed. He dove down, ripped at the vines. His hands shook, but he worked fast. The creature came into view between the trees, faster than before. Mouth open, tongue torn, strings of flesh hanging loose, eyes locked on us. Dad muttered, "Come on, come on." The vines snapped free. We dove sideways into a hollowed out, trunk half covered by moss. Dark, tight, damp. My breath came in short bursts. We pressed ourselves inside, barely fitting. Dad held his hand up. A silent command. "Don't move. Don't breathe loud." It slowed near us. Its claws tapped against bark. It sniffed. Low growls rumbled from its throat. Then another one appeared. I saw its legs first. Same strange anatomy. Same exposed muscle. They circled each other, making low, choked noises that almost sounded like laughter, wet, broken, like two people trying to whisper jokes through shredded throats. They paced back and forth, stopped, listened. One of them let out a soft chuckle, like a child mocking someone. After what felt like forever, they moved off. Their sounds faded into the trees. Leaves rustled. Then silence again. Not peaceful, tense, like the woods held its breath with us. Dad didn't move for a long time. Finally he whispered, "All right, slow, quiet." We crawled out. My legs shook. My mouth felt like cotton. Sweat cooled on my back even though the air had chilled. We didn't speak much on the way back. Once the truck came into view, I almost collapsed with relief. The world looked too normal for what we had just seen. Dad leaned against the hood, took off his cap, ran a hand through his hair. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. "You saw what I saw," he said. "Yeah," he nodded once. We don't talk about it. Folks won't believe us. They'll say we saw a sick deer, drank too much, got spooked. My mind spun. Shouldn't we report it? Warn someone? He stared at the tree line, long, silent. If folks go looking, they'll die. If they stay away, maybe whatever that was stays where it is. He paused. We stay out of those woods. That's enough. I didn't argue. Not because I agreed. Because I didn't want to go near those trees ever again. That night, I lay in bed and listened to every little noise. The house creaking. Wind scraping branches. My heart hit my ribs each time. Every shadow in my room felt stretched too long. I thought about the cave. The bones. The laughter. The scream that sounded too close to human. I wondered how many times we'd walked those same trails. How close we might have come before, without knowing. The woods weren't a second home anymore.